Alright, in this video we're going to kind of combine two different techniques. I already threw a cylinder. I made sure it was a little wider. I have my paper tube where it's the cardboard tube with some paper wrapped around it, and this is just me putting it in the center, and then I'm just collaring and squeezing the cylinder right onto it. I do this so I can push against the cylinder and it doesn't warp. This is a great technique that I learned on YouTube that I'm putting on YouTube. So you can see what I'm doing is I'm just cleaning off all the water off the outside so I have a nice dry surface. I'll take a little bit more clay off the bottom with my wood knife so I have a little bit more of a straight cylinder. But I'm not worried about the top being too wobbly. I'll be having to cut that later. You can see I'll probably take my wood rib there again and just kind of smooth out this cylinder, get it nice and straight. Get all the water off so it's nice and dry so that my tool doesn't stick to it. And then I'm going to use what's called a roulette by Potters, and I'm going to run a texture up the side. You could also press a texture with stamps that you'll see a little bit later. You could combine different textures. You could put a piece of cloth on here and roll it with a pony roller. Having the tube in the middle is really useful because you can push against the cylinder and not warp it. Anytime that we heavily texture the outside or alter the outside of a form, when we stretch the form out, we do the stretching primarily just from the inside. Kind of how you would shape a bowl with a metal rib. In fact, you can make it very similar to that with a metal rib. I'm using this brick pattern here, running it along the side. I'm going to leave a little gap and put some stamps that I have with just a little stamp I made from a fondant mold, just to show you the idea that you don't have to use a roller. You could use any kind of stamp, would work just fine. So it's a little stamp of like a little toy gear shape, and it's a little piece of bisqueware stamp that I made. I'm going to stamp that middle area, and then I'll do a few stamps on top of the bricks too, so you can see that I can layer my texture, which I think just makes it more interesting than just a straight repetitive pattern. Texture is great also because there are certain glazes that we use, like the waterfall brown in class, that really do better on texture. All the different little textures give you a variation of different colors, better than on a smooth surface anyway. So you can see I'm just pressing my little gear randomly all around the cylinder. This is just a demonstration. I didn't really think through this pot. It wasn't something I was going to keep, but once I've got all these little pieces on there, I'll be kind of ripping some of the paper from the top off screen here. I just want to grab the tube, not the paper, and I want to pull the tube out. And then, once I pull the tube out, it gets stuck a little bit here. Once I pull the tube out, I'll be able to pull the paper out and remove any paper that gets stuck to the inside wall. The better I dry the inside of my cylinder, the less it sticks. Some of the paper came with it, which is because I wrapped it one or two times around. There's still a little row of paper in there. You can see I'm just kind of taking that paper. Once I grab it, I can kind of peel it out. And now my cylinder is maintained its really nice roundness, but I've gotten to texture the outside. Alright, so the wheel's spinning. You can see it's wobbling just a little bit. As long as I hold my hand still on the inside, that wobble will straighten itself up. I'm just putting a little bit of water on the inside so my hand doesn't stick. I'm pushing my fingers out, trying to hold my hand as still as possible, and you can see I'm just curving my fingers on the inside and slowly lifting my fingers up, and that's going to kind of straighten the cylinder. I'm going back down with my fingers, back up again, nice and slow, just stretching the form out. This also kind of distorts and twists the texture, which I like. Now I've got my rib on the inside, and I'm using my metal rib just to continue to kind of bring out that texture. If I want to have a nice even round shape, it's really good to use the metal rib. The further out you push it, the more it's going to look like my spring or my little sprocket screw kind of shape is going to distort, and those bricks are going to kind of be twisted rather than straight. So you can kind of see that there. Now, if I do have texture all the way running up the pot, I could leave it that way, or if I want to erase that texture, I can put a little bit of water on it, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of raise through that texture, which is going to erase it, and then the top of my pot can have like a normal top. Then I can collar it in and make a bottle or a vase shape. I can make a coffee cup this way. I thought it was just kind of nice to have the contrast of the nice smooth rim that you would drink out of, and then the texture below it. Drinking out of sometimes heavy texture causes you to kind of dribble down your lip and stuff. So usually if I make a kind of drinking vessel or anything, I will have the very top edge smoothed out. So now I'm just kind of collaring, making kind of a vase shape, bringing the top in so that my pot has a little more roundness to it. I can't do much more to the rim of this pot because there's not much clay left, but I'm making kind of a simple recurve top for my pot. I'm using the corner of that metal rib to kind of separate the top from the bottom to have a nice clear demarcation. I'm reaching my fingers in there. I want to give this piece a little bit more volume on the top, give it a higher shoulder, kind of puff it out a little bit. Get my nice tight line back. Alright, and then I will use my wood knife and get rid of some of that on the bottom. This is also going to get rid of a little bit of texture, but now it's kind of framed between the top smooth and the smoothness of the bottom. So you can see that my texture is kind of twisted. Those little like kind of bolt shapes are a little distorted. But in general, it's a nice shape. Now I'm just cutting it in half to show you the inside, what it looks like. You can see that the bottom is left about a 1/4 inch thick. There's a little bit of thickness on the bottom where I could trim it. I left the cylinder a little thicker because I knew I was going to stretch it from the inside. And then the top is a little thinner.